All right. Hi, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our January parent session. This is our first session of the year. And I want to just thank you all for joining us this evening. Also, again, we're going to be recording this session, which it has already started recording. So just FYI, that's going to be happening. And also, if you all can please kindly mute yourselves while the presentation is happening, just so we don't have any background noise or any interruptions with our presenters. Our presenter. There will be time after the presentation for questions and answers. And with that, we can go ahead and introduce our presenter, which is Jacob Galindo, and he is the Instruction and Assessment Librarian for the University Library.
Yes.
So Jacob, can you share, or are you able to share your screen, or do I need to set that?
Yes, I'm able to share.
Okay, perfect. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Galindo. I'm a UTEP librarian. I'm an instruction librarian. So what that means is I present to your students, your children through their professors, through their classes. I introduce them to the library and how to do research using the library's resources. And not only that, me and my colleagues teach them how to evaluate information, how to be aware of what is good news, or I'm sorry, what is good information versus false information, helping them evaluate sources. So that's primarily what me and my team do at the library. So today I'm going to walk you through a virtual tour of the library. So let me share my screen. One moment, please. Okay, so we're getting ready to start our virtual tour of the library. So this is actually a virtual tour that we've set up for students visiting the university, visiting the library. So anyone can use this, and I can actually, at the end of my presentation, put this virtual tour in the chat for you all to access. Now, things have changed at the library since we created this virtual tour, and I'll point those out along the way, mainly when it comes to COVID-related updates, how many people, for instance, how many people can check out a study room. In the virtual tour that we have, it's 3 people, but in reality right now it's only 1. So here's how we start off the tour. Now, before you start, we do ask students whether they've used the library or not to rank their favorite services about the library or what they would be most interested in. So maybe research support assistance, online books, their librarians, online streaming video, just so we can kind of get an idea of what students are interested in. And then next slide. So this is the entrance. This is the atrium of the library. As you can see, there is a giant tapestry from Bhutan. And you may or may not know that the architecture of UTEP is based heavily on Bhutanese architecture. And that's mainly because when the UTEP, the university was first created, the first president's wife was really interested and in Bhutan, in the nation of Bhutan, after a visit there. And she was really impressed with what it looked like there. And then from then on, UTEP, every time there was a new building created, UTEP just kind of based it off of that unique Bhutanese architecture. And a lot I'm not sure, I forget the year, I think it was in the mid 2000s, there was actually a congregation from Bhutan who visited UTEP because they were so impressed that we based so many of our buildings off of their architecture. So in the picture on the right, you can actually see there is a giant book on Bhutan. At one point, this book was the largest book in the world. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. But just around the entry area, we have different Bhutanese related imagery and artifacts. So this giant Bhutanese tapestry is it refers to an ancient Bhutanese legend. Well, not so much a legend, but more of a folk tale. And then right at the front, you'll see the coffee shop. And right now, the coffee shop is open. And I should say that the library building itself is open during the pandemic. However, not every single floor is available. Right now, only the entrance floor, which is this floor, which is actually the second floor. There is the first floor, which is really the basement. But right now, only the second floor and the third floor are available. And only parts of the third floor, like the Technology Support Center, which I'll get to. Um, but yes, the coffee shop is open. However, students and staff and faculty are only allowed to consume their beverages in this area. Once they move past the gates, no food or drink is allowed. All right. So again, this is the entryway, the atrium. And before students move on with the tour, they have to answer questions just to make sure, that they're actually paying attention, that they're actually read through the slide. So right before, let me go back to the previous slide. Right when you pass these little gates, you are taken to the Access Services desk. Now, during this time of the pandemic, we ask that people check in to this desk. And right now, the library building is only open to current UTEP students, faculty, and staff. So anyone who's visiting, if it's a community user, even alumni, if you're not a current student or staff or working for UTEP in any capacity, you're not allowed in the library building at this time. However, of course, students are. All we ask is that they come in, they check in with their UTEP ID, their student ID or their ID number. And then once we verify that they're a current student, they're free to use the library. So the Access Services desk isn't just a place to check in. This is where students can go to ask their questions about research. If they need help or assistance finding articles, books, newspapers, any library resource, they can come here for assistance. If they need to check out a study room, they can also come here to check out rooms. Now, right now, we're only allowing the study rooms that are on this floor and only one person at a time. Normally, during regular hours, when there is no pandemic, study rooms are group study rooms. So you actually need 3 or more people to use one. But now it's the opposite. Now they're only for one person at a time. And when people are done, they return the key, and then we disinfect the study rooms and we let them sit for about half an hour, and then the next person comes in. Now, when you do visit inside the building, when students visit, we are asking that they keep their masks on at all times. That includes the study rooms. Even though they're by themselves, people are going to be using it afterwards. So we do ask that students who utilize the study rooms keep their masks on. A lot of times professors will put books or other reading material on reserve for the class to share. So some professors realize that, textbooks can be very expensive. So they figure, well, I'll just put a couple on reserve so that class can share. So you'll notice behind the desk, there's some bookshelves. These are books that UTEP faculty have put on reserve for their class to share. So a student can come up to the desk and talk to a librarian or a staff member and ask to see that if their if their professor has put a book on reserve for their classes. So it's a really neat service that we offer. Also, this is where students would come to pick up books that we borrow from another library. So if there is an item book, movie that a student needs for a class, but the library doesn't have, we'll borrow it from another library. That's a service called interlibrary loan. And when we get those items, the students would pick them up here. So this is the main information hub of the library. Any questions students have about the library or about research, they would come here. And then of course, when they visit the library for the first time, they need to check in. So what questions can they answer at the Access Services desk? We're mainly there for research assistance. All right, so in the library, we have what are called the main stacks. These are the floors where all of our print books are located. So during regular operations, and this tour is based off of regular operations, students could go to the fourth and fifth floor and find the books they need to check them out. However, right now, during the pandemic, these floors aren't available. That doesn't mean your students can't check out books. They can, but they need to do it via a form. So here's the library website, and it has our library hours conveniently located. But right below the hours, there is a link that says borrow books. So this is the form students would fill out to borrow books. So the way it works is, so the students can't go up to the main stacks, but library staff can. So they'll begin this form. They fill out their name, first name, last name, UTEP email, their 800 number, their classification, and then they write down the name of the book and then the author, the call number. So before they get to this point, they have to know what book they're looking for. So they would do a book search in our library system. So let's say they're looking for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and they need a physical book, not an electronic book. So I'm going to go to print books only. So this is the information they would need. So let's say it's not the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but it's a book about the character, about their creature. So they would get the name, they would get the author, and the call number. That's how they would find the book normally. That's how we organize our books, by call number, not necessarily by title or by author. So that's the information they would need to fill out this form. And then if they have multiple requests, they would just click on yes after they fill out this information, and then they can keep going. And then once they click on submit, this is a really quick process. We usually have books ready within the hour, if not less. It just depends how busy we are. So a student can fill this out at home and then drive to the library, and it'll probably be ready. Or they can go to the library and log into a computer, fill this out, and then maybe in about half an hour, it'll be ready. And so we'll email the student, and since they've already provided us their 800 number, we'll already have checked the book out to them. So they just come to the Access Services desk, we give them the book, and they're good to go. And students can check out up to 28 books at a time for about 28 days at a time. So they can check out a lot of books at once. And then they can renew either in person, or they can renew online, renew their books. They would just need to log in to their library account, and they can log in from there. And that account is on the library homepage. They just need to go under popular links, my library account, and they can see what they have checked out. So yeah, so this slide is saying how students can normally check out a book, but during these times, they can't do it the normal way. They have to do it via the form. So who do you ask for help when you don't know where to look? Well, students would ask a librarian, either online. We are available online. They can email us their questions via the Ask Us tab. They can email us a question. Or very soon, we haven't implemented this yet, but very soon we're going to have an instant chat messenger. So in addition to emailing us, they can just chat with us for a little bit, a more casual feel, for a live question and answer session. But we're going to implement that in the next couple of weeks. But students can email us if they need any help, or if they're at the library building, of course, they can visit us at the Access Services desk. So study rooms, I touched upon this before. So there's study rooms throughout the library building, through all the first through fifth floor. But right now, the only study rooms are available on the third floor. I'm sorry, the second floor, the entrance floor. And right now, we're only allowing one person at a time. And they have to go to the Access Services desk, and we ask that they do keep their masks on. Now, it is first come, first serve. Students can't call ahead and reserve a room. Well, okay, now because of the pandemic, we do offer very rare exceptions. Sometimes students do need an enclosed study space because they're taking an online test or they have a job interview of some kind. In those instances, yeah, they can call ahead. But that's only now during the pandemic because the library is one of the few buildings on campus open. Usually those services can be provided at the union. The union building does have spaces like that available if a student needs to prepare for an interview or they have an interview via Zoom or Skype, or they need to do some kind of recording. So usually we don't do first come first serve, but during the COVID pandemic we do make small exceptions. But for the most part it is first come first serve, and that's definitely true during normal times when there is no pandemic. Their group study rooms are first come first serve, and we can't reserve them. That might change in the future. We might revise that to where students can reserve, but they definitely are very heavily used during finals week. During finals week, actually, the library is open 24 hours during that 1 week. So as you can imagine, there's lots of use of these study rooms. And right now, during the pandemic, our library's hours have changed. Usually we're open from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m., but now we're from 7 to 8. And that's Monday through Thursday. We have different hours on Sunday, Saturday, and Friday. And that's true even during normal hours. But if you or your students ever want to make sure, you just click on library hours and we show you throughout the month when we're open. That includes holidays, when we're closed. Saturdays we're usually, even during like the non-pandemic time, we usually do close at 6. But for the most of the week, we close at 1 a.m. During the pandemic, it's 8 p.m. So how many people do you need to check out a study room? During pre-COVID times, it was at least 2, but now it's 1. So the library does have a wide area of study spaces. Even during the pandemic, where the computer lab is, we do have study spaces available. In fact, this area on the bottom screen, that's on the 2nd floor. This area is available. Now everything is spaced out, so there's not much room for group studies. So study groups aren't really allowed, but individual study spaces are available. We kind of removed some of the chairs, so it's 1 person per table. Everything is spaced 6 feet apart, so students can feel comfortable studying and they don't have to worry about other people being in their space. So this study area is available. And on the 3rd floor, before the pandemic, this is what it would look like. All of these spaces would be available. So right now, this top picture is not available, but this bottom one is. And we do have it spaced 6 feet apart. Now, on the 5th floor, now this is pre-COVID, on the 5th floor, we do have individual tiny study spaces, little cubbies, cubicles. Those are first come, first serve. We didn't used to have them. They used to belong to the English department for their doctoral students, but then they moved out. So now they're available to students. Well, not now, but after the pandemic, and it's first come, first serve. And those proved to be really popular with students. And we're glad that we were able to accommodate, because for years students have been asking, do you have any individual study spaces? And now we do, because the group study rooms weren't available before. They were for groups. Now, ironically, because of the pandemic, the study rooms are only for individuals. But once the pandemic's over, the group study rooms will go back to being groups, and the individual study spaces on the 5th floor will be available again. Also, during normal times, the 5th floor of the library is the quiet floor. There's this misconception, or well, it used to be true, but not anymore, that the library is a quiet space. You have to talk really quietly. A librarian's gonna shush you. That's not true anymore, especially in a university library. There's all kinds of talking and noise and collaborating. I mean, if it gets super, super noisy, okay, maybe we'll ask people to tone it down. But for the most part, it's a noisy place. But sometimes students need a quiet place to study. So the 5th floor was the designated floor where quiet was enforced, and students could go to the access services desk and ask a librarian, or email a librarian to say, hey, someone's talking really loudly up here. In which case, yeah, somebody would go up there to ask people to be quiet. But right now, that space is no longer available. Even that being said, though, right now the second and third floor being the only floors available, and with people needing to be 6 feet apart, the library is pretty quiet right now. So people looking for a quiet study space could still come to the library, because there's not a lot of talking or collaborating going on, because we're not allowing people to congregate, to be within 6 feet of each other. So media and microfilms, this is on the first floor, the basement. Unfortunately, this is also closed off right now. But during the regular times, media and microfilms is where we have our old newspapers, old magazines that are no longer in print. They're in a kind of film. So some of you might be familiar with this. So an entire month's worth of newspaper or magazine could be on a roll of film. So that saves on a ton of paper. So this is how those old newspapers are stored. And we have a lot of historical information there. So El Paso newspapers back from the 1880s, not just El Paso, but Juarez and Las Cruces as well. So this is really helpful for students studying history. And it's also usually open to the community. So community users can come down here to use the microfiche and microfilm. Right now, well, right when the pandemic happened, this was open by appointment. So students could contact the library and see if they could come here via appointment. But then cases really started to spike and the hospitalization rate went up. So this is no longer available by appointment. If students really need something from there, I think we can make accommodations. We can maybe scan something for the students, like if they know exactly what newspaper article they need or what they're looking for. Unfortunately, users in the community wouldn't be able to do that. And there are some researchers, not just in El Paso, but across the United States, who utilize this resource, and we've had to turn them away because right now we're only allowing UTEP faculty, students, and staff. And we also have a limited DVD collection. It's also here in media and microfilms. Most of our video content are on our streaming video databases. Mostly documentaries, some documentaries and independent films, some Hollywood level films, mainly for classes, but those are on our streaming video databases. So right now, we do have a number of partners within the library. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, and I know I sound like a broken record mentioning that, most of these are unavailable, but in the library, we have the Math Tutoring Center. So if your students are having troubles or need assistance with math, they could go to the Math Resource Center for Students, the Math Tutoring Center. I believe they have some limited tutoring online. Then you have the University Writing Center. I know for a fact they do have online, they do provide help online. If students need assistance writing their papers or trying to cite their sources, or they need help trying to figure out sentence structure, grammar, if they need a second pair of eyes to proofread their papers, the Writing Center is what they can use. So in the past, they could just visit the Writing Center. It's actually to the very right of the Access Services desk. But for now, they'll need to email them, and then they can schedule an online appointment with them at the University Writing Center. And then we also, right before the pandemic hit, or right around when it hit, we had the Minor Learning Center. So right when it happened, the Minor Learning Center opened in the library, and that was going to be a tutoring center for multiple subjects. So physics, history, math, science, it was all going to be there. This used to be in the UGLC, I believe, but we were able to open up a bigger space for them in the library. So right around when the pandemic hit, that's when it was finished. So once it ends, this will be available to students. So so we'll have more students in the library to utilize tutoring. And the hours for each of these departments do differ. They're not necessarily open the same hours as the library building. For instance, I know the Writing Center closes earlier. The Technology Support Center, that is huge. Like all technology related to UTEP is within the library. So these are all different departments. So they're not affiliated with the library. Like a librarian isn't going to be working in any of these departments, but these departments live inside the library. So the Technology Support Center actually is open right now on the 3rd floor. It is by appointment only, but if a student needs to check out a laptop or any kind of technology, and we've had plenty of that since COVID-19 hit, of students and staff checking out material, they would go to the Technology Support Center. They're also available via email and chat through the phone. So any technology issues your child is having, they can't log into Blackboard, they're not able to log into their UTEP email account. Anything going wrong with their computer, they can actually, even if your student has their own computer, they didn't get it through UTEP, but they're pretty sure they got a virus or it's running slow, they can bring it to the Technology Support Center. They used to be able to just bring it, but now they would have to make an appointment. But they can still do that. So most of the Technology Support Center services are still available. They just need to be done by appointment. Or they can be spoken with via email or over the phone. But they are still available. Texas Western Press, this is also located right next to Media and Microfilms. They haven't been doing a lot lately, but we basically it's the universities or the libraries publishing wing. So it hasn't been, especially since COVID-19 hit, there haven't been any new publications, but a lot of what we did publish or would like to continue to publish is located on the 1st floor. The press publish, it used to, or well, again, it because of the pandemic, publishing books like mainly useful to the area, to El Paso, to UTEP. So border issues, geography, Native American studies. Texas Western Press doesn't publish as much as it used to, especially now, but it is a pretty big component in the library, or at least it used to be. Technology Support Center, I already went over. So again, equipment checkout, computer clinic, that's if your student is having trouble with their computer, Blackboard help. The VPN, so this is something whenever I'm giving a class or any librarian is instructing students, we always talk about the VPN. So the VPN is a virtual private network. Basically, when your children are connected with the VPN, they're connected to UTEP's network. So they're not having to log in constantly with their UTEP email. So for instance, when they're trying to access a library database, they usually have to log in. But when they're on the VPN, they don't. It just takes them straight there. The VPN, when you're connected to the VPN, it's as if you're at UTEP. Your computer thinks it's a UTEP computer. But sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes it'll get a little bit wonky. So if your student is having trouble with the VPN, they would go to the help desk, or they would call the Technology Support Center, the help desk, and they would help them out. So what does the VPN do for you? It can create a connection between their computer and the UTEP for off-campus use. That's just one of the things they do. Again, they can check out equipment. That's not just computers, but also cameras, audio, hard drives, calculators, projectors. There's a lot they're able to use. Now, a lot of these, they're only able to check out for a few days. Laptops, I believe they can have all semester long. All right, the Collaborative Learning Center. This is our computer lab. I believe it is the largest computer lab on campus. And this is still available to students. In fact, it's one of the main reasons students come to the library, not just to check out books or do research, but to use one of these computers. Right now, everything is spaced out, so our students are 6 feet apart. So right now, for instance, in this picture, this computer is available. These three aren't, or actually these two aren't. I think this one is. And when students are done, there's a little sign on there that they flip saying, I'm done, or this computer was used. And so our custodial staff walk around, and so they look to see, was this used? Oh, it was. And then they disinfect the entire area for the next student to use. So this is still used quite a bit. Students can use these computers for anything, for research, for help, even if they just want to relax and watch something. These computers are for them. And also printing. Printing's available not just in the library, but throughout campus. So they can print something here. And the way the printing works, it works through the cloud. So if they have a class at UGLC, they can print something here. And then when they get to the UGLC, they can find a printer there. And then using their UTEP ID, they're able to print from the UGLC. So the basically printing is not tied to any one computer. In fact, they can do it from home, like print something from home and then get to the library, and they're able to print what they had sent from home. So that's a really neat service that the Technology Support Center has. So again, this is the largest computer lab on campus. It's still available in the library for students to use. So the tour is talking about respondents. So a lot of times professors have students take quizzes, or they take tests, but they want to make sure they're not cheating, that they're not getting help, that they're not looking at anything they're not supposed to look at. So there's this computer program called Respondus that helps them with that. And each of these computers has that program on it. So Mark's talked about the Math Resource Center for Students. That's the Math Tutoring Center. Minor Learning Center. I talked about that earlier. So yeah, it's basically the tutoring center for a variety of subjects. So political science, geology, astronomy, biology, physics, anything a student would need assistance and need tutoring help with. Unfortunately, right now, it's not available. It just opened right around when the pandemic hit. In the University Writing Center, again, this is still available for students online. So students do need to make an appointment, but it's so essential when trying to, when students are trying to write their papers. And I just lost our tour. 1 second. Let me 1 second. Let me get back to where we were. And we're almost done. So whenever students are writing papers for their professors, there's usually different citation styles, writing styles that their professors ask them to use: MLA, APA, Chicago. And depending on the students, they can be writing for different citation styles, multiple citation styles during the semester. So an English class might have them using MLA. A science class is using APA, and then they have a history doing Chicago. That's a lot for students to juggle. So if they need assistance with differentiating any of those styles, the University Writing Center is their best bet. And of course, throughout the library building, we have exhibits and artwork from local El Paso artists all throughout the building. And right now, even though the second and third floor, all that's available, they can still find this. So this giant pickaxe, that's an art installation, that's actually on the second floor for students to view. The Bhutanese artifacts and altars, that's as soon as you walk in. So after the pandemic, after all this craziness has left us, you're more than welcome to visit the building and explore the different art fixtures that we have. And last but not least, we have the Special Collections Department on the 6th floor of the library. So Special Collections is, well, it's kind of the unofficial archives of UTEP. So it's kind of its own mini library up there. It has special and unique materials related to the El Paso region, such as art. So yeah, you have artwork, border studies, Chicano studies, military studies. So you have books that were written by local authors or by faculty, but then you also have historical documents, like old documents and books from the 1800s, the 1700s, correspondences between important people, documentation from the conquistadores. There's even a book. It's a rare book. It's in one of the rooms that was actually made with human skin. There's all kinds of different treasure up here, a treasure and wealth of information, specifically when it comes to El Paso history. So if your students are doing any kind of history research on the region, they can come here. And also, much like the media and microfilm on the first floor, researchers from around the country utilize our special collections. However, because of the pandemic, this is only available by appointment and only for UTEP students, faculty, and staff. So again, we've actually had to turn away some researchers who need help or who would like to use the information found here. We can make some exceptions, but for the most part, only students are allowed by appointment only. There's also interviews included here. So interviews, images, historical documents and information regarding El Paso, Juarez, Las Cruces, Fort Bliss, UTEP, El Paso, like old El Paso. If you wanted some blueprints of a building at UTEP, or maybe potentially some architectural blueprints from a building downtown, you might find them here in special collections. So it's actually a really good resource. And actually, this is new. There is a special collections virtual tour. I'm not sure that we have a ton of time for it. And that's relatively new. I almost forgot about it. So I am going to provide this link, the link of the tour, in the chat, so you can view this when you need to. And that was the last slide of the tour. Thank you all so much for your patience. I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions. So now I'm going to open the floor to questions, and I am going to put this in the chat in the meantime.
Thank you, Jacob.
You're very welcome.
So I'm sorry, I missed, what are you putting in the chat? Like the tour?
The virtual tour.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I'm wondering, do you do these tours in person, like at all, when like normal times?
Yes, during normal times, yes. In fact, I think last spring, I did the same tour with this group, and it was in person.
Okay.
All right, so that tour is in the chat.
Thank you. We also had a request on any information in Spanish. Do you have anything like that we could share?
At the moment, no. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish very well. One of my colleagues does, and usually I think last time when we gave the tour, me and my colleagues took turns, English and Spanish.
So maybe I believe it was Idali que quería más información en español. So see, is it okay if like maybe they contact you
Oh, yes.
and you can pass them along? Okay.
Yes, yes. So let me, out in the chat, I'm also going to put my email address.
So Idali, si quiere contact Jacob si necesita información en español para que le puede preguntar a su colleague a ver si le puede ayudar en español. Okay, and do we have any questions from anyone? Any comments?
I just want to say thank you, Jacob. I used to be a student at UTEP, and the library intimidated me because it's just so grand, and there's just so much to it. And I'm thankful for this tour because now I don't know if people realize how many resources are in there. Resources are in the library. I think that's why I was intimidated. Also, like. I was scared to look for a table. I felt like everyone was staring at me, but I really appreciate all the resources that are in the library, as well as I didn't know about special collections up on the top floor. I thought the 5th floor was the top floor, but I guess I was wrong. So I thank you for that. Y sí, para Idali, ahí en el chat, Jacob también puso unos links del tour que enseñó ahora, si quiere ver eso. Y también ahí está el email de él si necesita más información en español. Alguien que trabaja con él le puede dar esa información en español si lo necesita. But yes, thank you so much for that. I know there's some students on here who probably like, oh, I did not know that existed. So I thank you for that.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Jacob, do you have any, oh, I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if you have any information regarding like reserving for students, like reserving for presentations or anything like that. Like, I know the Bloomberg, I don't know if that's available for students or if it's just.
Usually the Bloomberg is mostly available to mainly for staff for presentations. During normal times, usually the study rooms aren't really available to reserve. However, the Technology Support Center does have there are study rooms in the Technology Support Center that students can reserve. And those are mainly because they have technology in them, like they have projectors and computers. We have a couple of those study rooms in the library building that are controlled by us, but usually we don't offer like individual study spaces, except for right now during the pandemic. Our study rooms are the opposite. It's just for individuals. And we do offer some exceptions. If a student does need a space to practice an interview or do an interview, they can call ahead. And because of that, I can't make any promises, but when things go back to normal, we might revisit some of those issues, like, why can't students call ahead to reserve a room? And that mainly it's because they're used so much by students who need a study room. But we'll see. But moving ahead, we'll see if any changes can be made. They might be, they might not be. But right now, the study rooms are one person only, first come, first serve, unless they call ahead and they have to have. It can't just be, oh, I want to use a study room. It's, no, I need to take a test or I have a job interview, and then we'll make that accommodation.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. We did get a question. It says, do you get artwork from Bhutan at the library that once this pandemic is over can be seen by the public?
Yeah, well, not so much artwork, but actual physical artifacts, like physical materials from Bhutan. And that's almost all of that is exclusively in the atrium. So Bhutanese, actually, no, I take that back. There is some actual Bhutanese original artwork in addition to those artifacts, and that's usually in the atrium. But yes, once the pandemic is over, not anyone is allowed in the building. You don't have to be affiliated with UTEP, and you can wander the atrium, and each Bhutanese artifact of note has notes beside it, almost like a museum piece saying what it is, where it came from, how we got it. And the same thing for all of our UTEP art pieces. So if you're wandering down in the basement in the first floor, there's some artwork, and then there's some notes about the artist, who donated it, who they are, what the painting is about. Yeah, we have dozens of pieces of art throughout the building. And once the pandemic is over, yes, please feel free to come visit and look around.
Are you a UTEP alum, Jacob?
Yes, I am actually. I have my bachelor's from UTEP in psychology.
Okay. I know we don't have like a information science degree or whatever it's called for librarians, right?
Yeah, I got my library information science degree from University of North Texas, but I got my bachelor's from UTEP.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Any other links we can share? Jacob did put his email address, so if you all think of anything after this, you can definitely, I'm speaking for you, but you can definitely email.
Yes, of course. If you have any questions that you think of later, or maybe your son or daughter has a question you think, oh wait, I think the library might know, just contact me.
Yeah, and if you don't, you can contact us and we can put you in contact with them. But yeah, thank you so much, Jacob, for your time, and thank you to everyone who spent the hour with us in our first parents presentation.
Yes, thank you all so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, you all have a good night. We will see you next month.
Yes.
All right, bye-bye, good night.
Bye.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you.